I shouldn't ever do this, spring something on our guests, but Sal likes his trivia. Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. I'm enjoying Sal reading through the weekly NBC press release that we get, the Sunday Night Football. It's the 20th year of the Sunday Night Football package on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
And might you have a guess for where the Bills rank all time on this particular, I'll say again, package since 2006 with Michaels and Madden, the Sunday nights? They're not all on Sunday nights, but those NBC broadcasts. Where might the Bills rank in the league since 2006 on that show in winning percentage?
Winning percentage, not number of appearances. Okay. They ran a Sunday night flex game against New England. They lost. That was the first one they've been on in a long time. And then they've had a lot of success after that. There was a Pittsburgh game. There's the LA Rams game out there. Just a lot of success. Man, I think the Bills would be top 5 because I think they only have like one maybe loss I can think of. So I'm going to say 3rd.
Number 1.
All right.
9-3.
I was afraid to say 1. But I think they only have. I think I can only remember one loss, and that was the New England game.
The game in Cincinnati. 2 years ago, and then the Ravens last year.
Okay. Oh yeah, Sunday Night Ravens. Yeah, that's right. Jeez, I can remember the old ones, but not the new ones, I guess.
9-3 is the best record by winning percentage in the NFL on NBC Sunday Night Football. It would include the Rams game on the Thursday, and I think maybe the Chargers Peacock game would be included there. I'm not. There's one more that's not on a Sunday that I'd have to look up. Also, just quickly on this, I'm seeing the all-time record for viewers for one of these games was a Dallas-Washington game in 2012. Might have been Week 17, like for the division or something like that. 30.3 million. Last year's season opener, Baltimore, Kansas City, was second. And last year's season finale, Minnesota, Detroit, that Week 18 game for the NFC North, was third. I'm not a student on these numbers, and it's too smaller market, Sal, but I might give Ravens-Bills a shot at breaking that record.
Ooh, that's going to be a really well-watched game. You have obviously the last 2 MVPs of the league, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, were both very, very popular and I guess polarizing in a lot of ways for both of them. And it's obviously a rematch of last year's AFC divisional game, and it's also a game that's going to go a long way, or should at least, in the AFC. So I agree with you right there. And then it's, of course, Week 1, and people are juiced up for football.
That's right. And we know it's coming. It's a week and a half. One sign today, Sal, was Brandon Beane, when talking about Trey White and his status for the opener, was being, not completely forthcoming, probably. I don't want to say he was hiding anything exactly. I don't mean that. But just, we're hoping that he'll be ready. We don't know yet. Rehabbing toward the opener. We're at that point on the calendar where we're going to start to have to just wonder what guys' status is for upcoming games.
He even went so far as to mention that next Wednesday, knowing that offhand, is the first day they kind of have to reveal something.
Yeah. Right.
Which is the first day of the injury report coming out. And honestly, it is true. So starting now, they don't have to reveal anything as far as injuries are concerned. They didn't really have to through training camp, but there was always a courtesy what happened. But now we're in the regular season, and the only time they have to is once next week's injury report starts, which is next Wednesday. We'll get a limited or did not participate or full participate with an injury designation, and that's when we will know about Tre'Davious White. So, yeah, they're keeping things very close to the vest. And, yeah, I mean, I think some of that has to be a little bit of gamesmanship, which is you do not want your opponent to know what the situation is, what the status is. And some of it is just because they don't like to talk about injuries. And, that's something that they always kind of keep a little bit closer, like I said. So I think everything is kind of happening all at once with that.
Trey White, by the way, even was on the Ravens last year in the playoffs. Yeah. Right. So they're familiar with him. We'll see what it is. Did you have any particular instinct from Beane today? We know White wasn't put on IR. So they're not expecting him to miss a long time. That's, I think, obvious. But He's not fine either, Sal. Like he said, he's rehabbing, so it's not like this is nothing.
Well, a few things. He said he didn't put him on IR. We know that, so we know he's not out. We know they're giving a chance within the first 4 weeks. I think that would at least say that. He even said it's not a season-ending injury. He's rehabbing. He said Wednesday we'll see next week if he can practice or not. But he was asked specifically, so you're not ruling him out week 1? He said, I am not ruling him out week 1. He specifically said, I am not ruling him out week 1.
Why do that, right? I mean, no, unless you know it's bad. if it's bad enough, they only have the 2 spots I want to recognize, and maybe they could have a player that they think could miss significant time, but wouldn't have a way to. I think what you do. Sorry to get in the weeds, but what you do with Grable, the lineman, is you just put him on IR or waived or something like that, and White would take precedence. I think so. Doubt it's anything long term, but. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like he's going to be 100%.
It sounds like that, but we'll see. I'm out at practice right now, and because the team is still on the field right now, I can't give an update on anything as far as player participation, but if people pay attention to my X feed at Sal Sports after practice, I'll have that as far as who's here, who's not, who's working, who's in a red jersey, things like that. There's certain rules we have to follow when we can actually release that. But that'll be when we leave the practice field at some point here in the next, probably within this phone call, to be quite honest with you, because they started out here at 3, and we only get to watch a certain portion now. It is the regular season rules. We do not get to watch the entire practice.
Mm-hmm. Sal, the roster cuts were yesterday. Today was for waiver claims around the league. The Bills apparently made none. And also, none of their players that they cut was claimed by another team. Is that interesting?
It is interesting. I mean, from a standpoint of, you're always wondering, like, are they going to grab somebody? Or is somebody grabbing somebody from their team? And first of all, we don't know if they put any waiver claims in. Let's remember the Bills have the 30th pick in the waiver claim order. So even if there was a player they wanted, 29 other teams get a shot at that player every single time. It does not reset. You don't jump to the front of the line after the first pick or the second pick. It's literally Tennessee gets first pick, they go again. They get first pick again. They grab like 5 guys, right? 4 guys, 5 guys, something like that. So you get down to 30, even if the Bills put in a waiver claim, it wouldn't matter. They would probably not get the guy. That being said, I always want to remind everybody, and I know that like it's a cool thing, and I love it. I love it too. I love watching it and seeing the movement and who's going where and did anybody claim anybody. But the God's honest truth, Mike, is teams like their guys more than they like other guys generally. They draft a guy, they develop a guy, they have a guy in their program. He's been there with their coaches, with their teammates, with their training staff for, the last whatever months. And when it comes time to release them, you'd rather have that guy come back to you than go out there and get another guy that you don't know as much about. You have to onboard him into your system, into your team meetings. And even if you like the guy's talent more, that's a huge consideration why they wouldn't choose that guy over the guy they already had on their team.
Yeah, that's all reasonable. And plus, not only do the worst teams by last year's record get as many picks as they want, like you mentioned in terms of Tennessee, but they also need the most help. So,
that's right.
How might a GM do it? You sort of have a list of a number of guys on your roster that you might think that are replaceable. Everything you just said being said, then okay, but still, you might have somebody that you liked in the draft process a lot and have been hoping maybe would come free. That's the move you make. But thank you for pointing out that the Bills, we don't know that they didn't claim anybody. They just were not successful.
Correct. And I do want to make a point. Brandon Beane was asked today, a really good question by Thad Brown. And Thad asked him, okay, so when you get down to, you have 70 guys on the roster when you count all the practice squad guys. You've got 53, then you got 17 with an international guy. When you're talking about players 68, 69, and 70, how do you parse, hey, we got a young guy that we've drafted. It's going to take some time. We like him. We like having him here versus, we got an older guy. We got a veteran. He might not even help us this year, but, man, we like having him in the building. He can really help mentor. He can kind of sit in meetings, and guys can really lean on him and learn from him. That's Jordan Poyer now. That's Jordan Phillips. And I really liked Brandon answering that and saying that's absolutely a part of the discussion. Like, you have to think about that. You can say to yourself, I really like this young guy we drafted. We want to keep him here. But he's a project, and it's going to take a little while. Or you can say, you know what? It's better for our team to have an older guy here who might not even play that much for us, but, man, we love having him here. And that's 68, 69, 70. Those guys, the bottom end of the roster, are the guys at the bottom end of the roster. Most of them are not going to see the field this year.
Let's talk about Poyer, Sal. Was this one out of left field?
Totally. I have to admit, Mike, people had asked me a couple times about him, and I basically dismissed it any single time it happened. I basically would say, I just did not see it happening. I didn't see it coming, so we kind of dismissed it any time it was brought up to me. But, yeah, as soon as it percolated and we heard that Jordan Poyer was signed, I was pretty surprised. And, Brandon Beane talked about it today and said, why that was and what he brought to the table. And I was surprised to learn they've been talking since May, him and Jordan Poyer and Jordan Phillips, actually, both the Jordans. I will tell you, I completely was stunned. And anytime someone brought it up to me, I basically dismissed it, and I was wrong.
What do you think of the merits here? I mean, I think that there are obvious reasons that you could use to show how you understand the decision. It's the practice squad, his experience with the Bills, leadership, all that kind of maybe obvious stuff. He did. I mean, how did it end for him here, Sal? Like the Bills, for all the success they had together, he got to a point where they just were not interested anymore, and he went to Miami for very little money. So is it possible to think that the Bills have sort of a vision here where that like Poyer has something meaningful left to give on the field, or is it really mostly just the background stuff that teams, appreciate from veteran players?
I think it's mostly the background stuff. I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's no, thought that he could ever play for the team. And, when Micah Hyde came back last year, it was pretty much, I'm not playing, right? Like, I think everybody kind of knew Micah wasn't going to play. That was just kind of either spoken or unspoken, didn't matter. We all kind of realized that. He came back later in the year. In this case, Jordan's here now, so maybe that does happen, but it's really what he brings to help out in that safety room. And when people hear, and I know I get it a lot, and I understand, well, isn't that what coaches are for? Why do you need a coach on the field? Why do you need an older player? And Brandon Beane spoke about it today. It's not just on the field. It's how you conduct yourselves in meetings, watching film, understanding something. You see something that maybe another person wouldn't because you're a veteran. You've been in this league. You're watching film and saying, hey, you know what? We played this team once. They did this. You can help that guy prepare a little bit. So, yeah, that's the stuff that they like from him. How did it end? Not great. He lost a step when he was here a couple years ago, and I thought he lost even more last year playing for the Miami Dolphins. That was pretty evident watching him on the field. And that's a big reason why I was stunned. I just didn't think it was something they would do, but I get it from all the background stuff we just talked about. But as a player, it didn't end great. They went through a bit of a contract thing one year. They gave him a 2-year deal, and then they wound up basically, reducing that and, getting rid of him, or I should say, releasing him after 1 year.
And this is really just a teeing one up for you, Sal, but I mean, I'm assuming you and maybe everybody would corroborate the idea of Poyer's value, in the locker room and the experience and all that. I mean, it's not something we ever did deep dives on, just like sort of how these guys lead and what they're like in the room or anything like that. But I feel like it's probably a given. And now they've made the move to even say this further, but it's probably a given that Poyer was, excellent in that role.
Yeah, listen, I would say it this way, Mike. I don't know because I'm not in the room, obviously. But I think that the Buffalo Bills would never bring a player in like Jordan Poyer or Jordan Phillips if they didn't feel he was excellent in that regard. Like, I think they're so cognizant of that, how much they have to be a part of the culture and the organization and the locker room and everything that goes along with it. I would never expect Brandon Beane or Sean McDermott to sign a player that they didn't have full confidence in that guy does everything we ask and does everything right. It is so important to them. You know that about their locker room and what it means to them. And we've heard them talk about that. So that's why whenever people will talk about those guys and coming in and what they bring, to me, it's not a question because I know they wouldn't bring him here if they had a question. Right.
Do you happen to know, by the way, if the salaries on the practice squad are figured out by experience? I know the range is from about 250, whoever it is that's at Spot Track, I forget now, the number one highest paid player on the practice squad was just under 400. Would Poyer be somebody that would make more than that because of the career he's had, or is there a certain structure that has to be followed?
So, I don't know the exact number, but I believe that is the case because you are only allowed a certain amount of veterans on the practice squad, and those veterans will make a little bit more by being on the practice squad than a rookie or a first-year player because there are certain rules about how many guys who have a certain number of years experience you can even have. So I do believe, I just don't know the numbers, that the more years you have, obviously you would get paid a little bit more.
Okay. Did you have your draft last night?
Tonight is my first fantasy draft of the year.
Since February 5th.
Everybody's wondering. I'm going to say draft. There's 12 teams. I actually won the toilet bowl last year, as we call it, because I didn't make the playoffs and I won that bracket. And in our league, we reward that winner with their draft selection the following year. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, I asked you, what would you choose? And we went through it, and I ultimately chose 8th. And lots of people in my league are wondering, why the heck would you choose 8th? That doesn't seem right. And I like it, though, because I went through it with you, and we talked about it. We texted each other. And there's a certain group of guys that I know I'm going to get 2 of in that spot, and I like that.
And this is a keeper league, right? So not everybody's available?
No, it is a keeper league with, like, one guy. And usually it's not guys take it high, except in this year's draft, I do think Brian Thomas Jr. is being kept. That's one that's off the board. There might be another one I can't think of right now because the way we do it is you get to keep one guy that you drafted in the 8th round or later the year before, which is a pretty cool thing. That kind of rewards you for taking a flyer on somebody who works out.
Hoping that these players happen to both be available for you, would you rather have Shakir or Coleman?
Coleman.
Easily?
I think that Coleman, to me, is going to have a jump. Even if he doesn't approach Shakir's targets and catches, I think that the touchdowns would outweigh that. I think he's a bigger play guy that would overvault him, and I just think the ceiling could be higher. I would rather take – I'm usually a guy that goes the other way, to be honest with you, Mike. I'm usually a guy that takes more of the safe, like, floor and say, I'm good with this guy. But I think Coleman's situation, I'd regret passing on him if he had a big year, and he could.
Yeah, you're playing for upside, and I respect that.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. I wish there were another close one for the Bills. Like Palmer, I laid this out earlier – based on their average draft position, like Shakir is about 84 on Underdog. Coleman is 88, so they work together for the question. Palmer is 136. He's actually close to Kincaid, Palmer, but, different position. Still, like, could you talk yourself into Palmer? I think I could.
Sure, I could talk myself into it. I will tell you, though, Keon Coleman is kept in our league because it is a Florida league, but there's a guy in our league who's a big Bills fan, and he took Keon Coleman as his keeper for this year, and so he's going to be rewarded with that. We'll see where it goes. So he's actually off the board in our league.
I mean, that's probably not great for his roster.
Maybe not, but it doesn't count as anything. It doesn't count as like a certain pick. You just get him.
No, right. Just, a fan.
It's a freebie. I get Caleb Williams. I took Caleb Williams last year in like a 9th or 10th round and stashed him all year, and we'll see where it goes now.
You have him still?
Yeah, that's my keeper this year.
Is he going to start for you think?
It's a good question, Mike. I was going through that. If there is a high-level quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round that I can't pass on, I'll take him. But otherwise, I think I'll roll with him.
All right. Good luck. Can't wait to hear about it. I really mean that.
I appreciate that. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Sal. Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. Caleb Williams is fringe. So, think of Sal as Brandon Beane. Or the friend of his in Florida as Brandon Beane with Coleman. I like using Sal here. So he kept Caleb Williams. I mean, don't you have to play him? See, if your fantasy team was under scrutiny, we had, silly talk shows like this one who would analyze your decisions. Well, how can you keep Caleb Williams and not start him? Like, what kind of roster management is that? But, Sal gave the right answer, a business answer. If I can get somebody better, I'll do it. I don't have. This is what, Beane would say. Something like that. Always try to make our team better. But we like the player. That's why we kept him. That's why we did all this.